Hi, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Hustle. Today we'll be talking about how to make more money in 90 minutes than you make in a year just by using your voice. My name is Diyari. I'm the host today, and I am interviewing the man himself today. William, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Great. It's nice to be in my own studio.
It's nice to be in your studio.
And it is great to have you here hosting this up. Really looking forward to this. And it's really a complete surprise. I'm in the hot seat. What are we going to be talking about?
Well, there's a lot to talk about, obviously. You've been personally my mentor, and I value everything that I've learned from you. But I thought, where do we start? Well, Liam, I've been a speaker myself. I've been speaking for over 25 years, internationally, and sometimes in the UK as well. And I know different countries or even different continents have different nuances of speakers and speaking, and you need to know. Mine was mainly in the US. So when I started learning how to speak in the UK for the British audience, I thought I need to learn these new nuances. And there were many places to go and learn from and see, or I could just made it up myself and reinvented the wheel. But then your name kept coming up as one of the best speakers in the UK. So I thought, well, let's go to the man himself. And that's how we met, I remember, some years ago. And I obviously learned a ton from you. But why don't we start from speaking?
Great. Okay, good. Well, I absolutely love talking about the skill set of speaking. And I truly believe that it is one of the highest income generation skills that anyone can own. And it is definitely one of the reasons why my businesses over the last 10 years have gone from zero to multiple 8 figures a year, building what is now the UK's leading property business and wealth training organisation, and having amazing friends and clients just like yourself now getting great results. Did you know that speaking is one of the world's biggest fears? I think in the UK it's number 3. And in the US it's number 3, and in the UK I think it's up there. It's like number 1, right? People would rather die than become a public speaker.
True.
And when we talk about speaking today, it doesn't mean that you have to go on big stages or you've got to do this for a living. But I believe that speaking fundamentally is absolutely key at building relationships. And if you are someone listening to this and you want more sales in your business, you want more success, you want to have better relationships, you want to be a leader, a motivator, you want to build your teams, and you want to go from where you are now to where you need to go, what may be missing is how to use your voice correctly to command and connect with an audience. And when I say an audience, that might be your wife. That could be your kids. And when you understand how to use your voice correctly with tonality and pace and a process, this is how you really start to get better results.
Thank you, Liam, for that insight. What I learned over the years is that when you speak, like I said, I was trained to speak in America, and when you speak, people don't know this, but there's a blueprint, there's a formula you follow. I mean, I didn't know that, and because my trainers before were Americans, so they were training for America, so I didn't learn about the blueprint until I met you. Then when I met you, it was so much clearer because I think, Liam, allow me to say this, you are the master of demystifying things, decluttering things or defogging things. Some people make this a big deal. It is a big deal, obviously. It's a skill you have to learn and work hard. But the thing is, as soon as we met, you said there's a blueprint and you just need to follow that. And I was personally sometimes fighting it, trying to be clever, see if I can find my own way. I think that will come later once you master some of the blueprint. Then you can add your own flavor. What's your take on that? I mean, is it true that there's a blueprint?
Yeah, look, there are, when you go and meet any successful person, there is a blueprint for flying a plane. There is a blueprint for being one of the best dentists in the world, which you are. There is a blueprint for running a business. And there is definitely a blueprint for becoming a speaker, an influencer, a motivator, a leader. And I think what's important for people to tap into, why do you want to be a better speaker? So if I just take you back 10 years ago, I'd lost my business, minus £392,000. I'm unemployed. I'm literally living on fumes. I'm resorting to interest-only credit cards just to put food on the table. I can hardly look my kids in the eye because I'm so ashamed of myself. And my business literally went from being 115 staff down to minus £392,000 was the liquidation figure. I got into some mentorship. I was learning how to become a property investor, and I was facing some challenges. Agents didn't want to speak to me. Landlords didn't want to speak to me. I wasn't raising any joint venture funding. And I was at an event one day and I saw this guy on stage called Paul. And I don't know if you've ever been with someone and they just wow you. And I was like, oh my goodness, this guy has wowed me.
Yeah.
And at the end of his 90-minute talk, he literally had 100 people running to the back of the room wanting to do business with him. And I turned around to Jay, one of my business partners, and I said, Jay, that's what I need to master. That means we're going to be able to raise a lot of money. So I initially started learning public speaking, not to run a training organization, not to mentor people. I did it because I was aiming to build a multi-million-pound property portfolio using none of my own money, and I wanted to go and learn one-to-many rather than one-to-one, and I wanted to have a bit more confidence. So you need to identify, as a result of using your voice better, what impact could that have? And you know what, Diyari, the results were incredible. I invested another £25,000 into speaker training and mentoring. I started to hang out with some of the best speakers in the UK. I upgraded my circle. I went on a speaker retreat over in Florida, which I was way out of my depth. I was like the baby in the group, and I emerged then as a fantastic speaker. And 90 days after that, I secured 3 property deals, and I raised £1 million in joint venture funding off the back end of me becoming a speaker, and results were just unbelievable. And I was introduced to systems, and then what I've done over the last 10 years is I took what I was shown and I've created my own system, which I now go and teach people and I use with people, and that's called Expert Speaker Blueprint. And there's a 4-step process to this. So anyone tuning in, you're probably going to want to write this down, okay? So there's a 4-step process to becoming a better speaker. Step 1 is what we call command and inspire. And in that process, there's a 7-part structure to command and inspire any audience at any time. Step 2 is we have story. Step 3, we have signature solution. And step 4, we have income expansion. And when you follow the blueprint, and there are modules and elements to each of those steps, even if you're listening to this now and you're skeptical, you're introverted, you don't like selling, you don't even like humans very much, and you are someone that believes there is no way that I could become a public speaker or even attempt to speak, then going through that process, I believe every single person can transform and they will become one of the best speakers in the world. And once you follow this blueprint, you can then use that on the telephone. You can use it on a webinar. You can use it on social media reels. You can use it one to many. You can use it to your team. Hey, I even use it with my kids and my wife. They don't even know I'm using it, so shh, be quiet.
Me too.
And actually, it's not that difficult if you've got a big enough reason to want to become the best at what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. I mean, talking about that, I recently, out of the recent success and everything, I got myself a new nice ride, which we just had a look earlier, and I did have to kind of sell it to my wife. I had to know how to speak to her about it. Now, it's interesting because I've been, as you alluded to earlier, I've been a dentist for some 37 years. And you think you know your industry, you know everything, and I love my patients. I care about them, and you know that. However, learning few different things that you just mentioned about the 4 new skills in speaking, or the blueprint, I've actually changed some of the tonality, and it's not so much selling things to people, because the whole idea, sometimes people say, oh, I don't want to learn skills to sell to people. Well, it's not selling, but sometimes you have a great idea and you want to guide people in the right direction. Sometimes you see, just like we say for kids, for instance, we see what's best for them, but they don't see themselves. As a dentist, sometimes I see this thing actually benefits this patient long term, but they just don't see it. Sometimes they don't go beyond the money sign, unfortunately. So I learned a few techniques how to actually bring it down again and be part of the story with them, so that we are all in it together. And I've seen people at the academy, how they came, and kudos to you and the other mentors, but the idea is, you're talking about the blueprint, how by following the blueprint, they managed to become a speaker after a few short months. So I think you're right, speaking affects everything. But tell me one thing, this is a question here. Let's say you negotiate a deal, or you try to negotiate with a JV partner. Give me some, and this is not, I'm going to just hit you with this question. What are the first things you look for? Let's say you're in a room, you try to make JV partners with, I don't know, said Richard Branson. You're in the room having coffee. What clues are you looking for? How do you kind of change because that's also some sort of a speaking you have to do, negotiation.
I think what's important is, in any industry, there's competition. There's going to be people that have been in it for a long time. Perhaps you're starting in that sector. And in any room, there's always going to be a lot of noise and so you need to be standing out from the crowd. And that's one of the reasons why learning how to speak and speaking on stage, either in person or online, what happens is that you are elevated immediately. Before I was a speaker, whenever I looked at speakers, I was like, oh my goodness, they're like God, and you give them all the trust. You get people coming into your dental practice, immediately you are handed the trust because you are elevated as the expert. You go to a doctor and they say, take these pills or you need this operation. Most people don't question it. You give them the trust immediately. So by being a speaker, in that example, any JV partners in the audience are immediately going to gravitate towards you more than anyone else. And once you then start having conversations, then it comes down to building that trust, building that connection, listening. Most people do too much talking. Even some of the best speakers in the world. What you need to do is not love the sound of your own voice as much, and ask the right questions, use both ears, and build that relationship. A great speaker will ask the correct questions.
And that's what I was looking for.
Ask the correct questions to get to know the avatar, and also to identify, are we a good fit? Are we a good fit for one another?
Now that's brilliant, because that's what I was looking for, and I was hoping you answer that.
I passed.
Absolutely. So I know we are pushed for time here. So I'm going to ask you probably very quickly one or two quick questions. Let's say somebody's trying to run a webinar. They have a product or a service or something. They want to run a webinar. What advice would you give them in terms of, because that's also speaking, although it's not, you don't see the audience most of the time, but yeah.
I believe,
because you've done them all.
I do one-to-one speaking, one-to-many speaking, in-person, online, big events. I'm speaking at an event in a few weeks with 1,000 people, which is going to be incredible. I've run my own events with up to 650 people in the room. I've run online events with 500 people online at any given time. So running online events is an incredible thing for anyone to do, because you can get your message out there relatively easy. You can start organically. You can build an Instagram profile. You can go and connect with people on LinkedIn. You can start doing daily videos and lives. Everyone starts at zero. So the quicker you start, the quicker you're going to go get some results. But what you need when doing a webinar, you need a 90-minute speak to sell presentation that's going to take your avatar from not knowing you, super cold, and over just 90 minutes, you convert them into a paying customer, where at the end of 90 minutes, they're clicking the link in the chat box and they're buying one of your products or booking in a phone call where they are becoming a client, and that client could be worth many, many, many thousands to you. So you need to go and learn the structure. You need to definitely get training. You need to get mentoring, and you need to go and perfect a 90-minute presentation. It's what we call because you've got two types of speakers, Diyari. You've got speak to teach and you've got speak to sell. And there are millions of great speak to teach teachers. There's millions of them, but there's very few speak to sell. And you have emerged recently as a great speak to sell, and you're mastering that craft. Speak to sell is engaging an audience in person or online and having them buy from you. And that's the difference. That's really going to make the difference. So my recommendation for anyone tuning in is embrace speak to sell. Make the decision to go on the journey, get around great people, and you could be the next big thing.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And I'm a testament of that, because obviously I did master the 90 minutes myself. I had my boot camp, and I think we had a room of it was a small group, obviously a room of 17 people, and 13 people signed up based on that. And that is because the formula works. And the other thing is, obviously part of the formula was also how to learn 30 minutes out of the 90 minutes, which is if you are pushed for time, or somebody invites you to their gig on stage and they say you only have half an hour, then you can condense that. But once you have that formula, then you can do it. So thank you very much, my friend.
Great.
Really appreciate it. So that's that. Now, you heard it from the man himself with all the answers. If you want to know more, obviously, Liam, he's been my mentor. He's my mentor. He's my friend. And he'll always be. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think just some final few words. Once you get that 90-minute presentation nailed, you could be running one webinar from the comfort of your own home, drinking from your favorite mug, having just give your kids a kiss for bed, and you sit down in the comfort of your own home, and you can be making more money in 90 minutes than what you're currently making in 1 year. True. There is a new way to make money. No one needs to go and grind it out like they are. Find the new way, get the learning, and if we can do it, you can do it too. So if you are somebody that really wants to create more wealth for you and your future, then why don't you look at becoming a professional property investor, where you can take advantage of the UK's #1 asset class and make passive income and also capital appreciation. So I'd invite you now to click the link in the comments or the bio and go and access my latest book called Property Success. This is where I introduce you to the 7 step-by-step system known as the Property Freedom Formula that I have used personally to do over £31 million worth of property development. So go and do that right now. I really hope you enjoy this asset, and it could be the difference that makes the difference and gets you up and running in the next 90 days.